The worst is yet to come. Global inflation is expected to peak at 9.5% this year. Here in the U.S., inflation is soaring, paychecks are shrinking, and prices skyrocketing. The new Consumer Price Index out today show prices up higher than expected at 8.2% on an annual rate.
The threat of a major rail strike is also looming again. Still, President Biden continues to deny the economy is in a recession. Heather Sells reports.
Fears about the U.S. and global economy have flared this week with fresh reports of inflation and grim warnings from the International Monetary Fund about global recession.
In short, the worst is yet to come. And for many people, 2023 will feel like a recession.
Global inflation is expected to peak at 9.5% this year. And that is threatening to stall the European, Chinese, and U.S. economies. Some economists, like Stephen Moore, say the U.S. is already in a recession.
We had the first 6 months of the year, the economy contracted. That's the very definition of recession. And I define this as a recession, a cost of living recession, where Americans are just getting pounded.
Earlier in the week, the president sought to play down concerns.
I don't think there will be a recession. If it is, it'll be a very slight recession. We're in a better position than any other major country in the world, economically and politically.
Americans, however, know otherwise. As inflation soars, their paychecks are shrinking alongside their retirement accounts. The Federal Reserve has taken extraordinary measures to curb rising prices. It has increased short-term interest rates by 3 points since March, hoping to tamp down the highest inflation since the early 1980s. And it is expected to hike them again when it meets November 1st. On top of all this, the threat of the first major U.S. rail strike in 30 years is back, right as the holidays approach, and that could further cripple supply chains. Gallup and other polls show that heading into the midterm elections, Americans are most concerned about the economy and inflation in particular. And those concerns could influence who controls both the House and the Senate. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Well, CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody, joins us now from Washington for more on this. So, David, I'm hearing the president downplaying fears of an economic recession, and frankly, I'm kind of going, well, you're the one who said there wasn't going to be inflation. Now there's inflation, and should we believe him that there isn't an economic recession? And is that message even playing with voters?
Well, Gordon, you're making great points. The answer is no. It's not playing with voters. And once again, I always say don't take my word for it. Just look at the polls. I mean, one of the latest polls is really problematic for Democrats. 54% of folks in this country believe Republicans are the ones that can better handle the economy than Democrats. The Democrats clock in at like 37%. And it's not just this latest poll. It's been poll after poll after poll for over a year. And so the cake is baked. And this is not a good cake at all. It's a sour cake. It's going moldy, and it's going moldy fast. And I think, in essence, this red wave that we're talking about, Democrats just have not been able to turn the tide. They thought they could turn the tide potentially after the Dobbs decision regarding abortion. That now we're seeing has started to trail off. In other words, the economy now, more important than abortion. The abortion numbers are dying down. And so, look, this is a problem. Here's another part of the issue here from an economic standpoint. You have the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, saying there's going to be a recession in 6 to 9 months. Well, I think a lot of people would say, at this point, who do you believe more, Joe Biden or the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon? And so, look, I think it's all there, Gordon, and voters just don't want to be lied to. And I say lied to, I don't want to be careful about that word, but the truth of the matter is, what the Biden administration is doing is they're spinning to the point where people are like, look, I know how much I pay for milk. I know how much it costs at Carrabba's when I go out. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out.
Well, a former vice chair of the Democrat National Committee, I mean, this is huge. Tulsi Gabbard, she's announced she's leaving the party, the Democrat Party this week. What's the significance of her action?
Well, I think she's a microcosm of what's happening to the Democrat Party writ large. I mean, they're losing voters all over the place, and we can get into that in a moment. But as it relates to Tulsi Gabbard, I mean, look, the problem here is that it's not so much that Tulsi Gabbard has left the party, it's that the Democrat Party really has left her. And I know that sounds like a trite line, but it really is true. I mean, the Democrat Party has moved so far away from what they used to be. I mean, think about it. Bill Clinton today, if Bill Clinton were running the Democrat Party, he would not win the nomination. Just that simple. The Democrats are not in a position to elect at the time, moderate Southern governor from Arkansas back in the 90s. It wouldn't happen today. There used to be Bernie Sanders and maybe one or two other socialists back in the 90s and 2000s. And so now you've got 10 to 12 at least. Folks that are self-proclaimed socialists in Congress saying, way to go, this is the way forward. So this is how far the Democrat Party has moved, and Tulsi Gabbard is just really the beginning, the kind of the tip of the iceberg, if you will.
Well, you've reported on how traditionally Democrat voters are now turning away from the party. What's behind that move? And I guess more importantly, how will it affect the midterms?
Well, I think what's happening, with all due respect, I guess, to the Democrat Party, but the pandering has caught up with the Democrats. They have taken Hispanics for granted. They've taken the black vote for granted. Quite frankly, Republicans had done the same for a long time with evangelicals. George W. Bush back in the day, it was like, well, it's the reliable white evangelical vote. They did that. And some evangelicals had issues back in the day regarding that. But the Democrats are doing the same thing here. And so what's happened is they're losing the Hispanic vote. That number has decreased quite a bit. They're still winning it overall from a majority standpoint, but they're losing it little by little. The black vote is a real problem. The young vote, the Gen Z vote, is even starting to turn on Biden specifically because it's more establishment. They don't like the establishment. And then you've got the white working class vote that used to be reliable Democrat. I mean, during JFK's time in the 1960s, he had that 2-to-1. Now Biden's losing the white working class 2-to-1. So everything is just reversed. And what they've become, the Democrat Party, is really an elitist type party. They whether it be big pharma, whether it be Hollywood, whether it be just the science, all of it, cancel culture. It's just even gender identity. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard said something very interesting, and I think it plays to this great realignment that you're asking me about, which is the word truth. I think ultimately people want truth. And Tulsi Gabbard said the Democrat Party, where is truth when it comes to the Democrats? And I think that has been something that voters have caught on to here.
Well, let me turn it around the other side and ask the same question on the Republican side in terms of where is truth. Aren't we in danger on both parties that extremists within the party? So, we've talked about the Democrats going socialist, but on the Republican side, good grief, you've got bison-headed shamans invading the Capitol and trying to pray. It's just, you look at that and you go, you got to be kidding me. And the rise of white supremacy or white nationalism, a lot of that is a political talking point, but behind it, there's some very real movements. And you go, wait a minute, I don't want to be a part of that either. Is this a time where maybe a third party emerges that because the two parties have gotten too extreme?
Well, I think structurally it's going to be very hard at this point in America to come up with some sort of third-party candidate. We'll see. But structurally, as it relates to actually winning, that's going to be hard. Having said that, Gordon, you're absolutely right. I mean, you got the Christian nationalism, the white nationalism on the other side. Now, having said that, let's be very clear here. The media stokes those flames. I mean, the media all of a sudden makes everybody out to be some sort of Christian nationalist. For example, if you believe that this is a Christian nation, or at least founded on Christian or Judeo-Christian principles, you would be potentially, by the media that is, labeled a Christian nationalist. So I think what's happening is we have a divide in this country. The media has stoked it, and we're, when everybody talks about civil war, we're definitely in an ideological civil war. We're in a geographical civil war. We're in an informational civil war. I don't think there's any question about that, and I think we see that play out every single day in America.
Well, I'll just stop you on the Christian nationalism. I was taught history at Yale University. I'm a history major. Edmund Morgan, the Sterling professor of history at Yale University, he put this out as an established historical fact. Without the Great Awakening of 1735 and the entire nation turning to Christianity, there would not have been a revolution in 1776. And he put that out there as an historical fact. So I'm not going to give that to the media. I believe that. I believe there were Christians involved in the formation of our republic. And throughout pulpits throughout the colonies, no king but Jesus was the rally cry. Now, were there deists involved? Was Benjamin Franklin a deist? Was Thomas Jefferson a deist? Yes. But John Adams was a very strong Christian. You can't get away from our Christian heritage. You can't say that it didn't happen. So, the dividing point for me is saying it's some kind of white supremacy. No. Our Christian history, I'm sorry, it's an established fact.
Well, and Gordon, just to pick up on that, what the media does, as you read those New York Times articles, as we all do, they will put Christian nationalism and white supremacy, if not in the same sentence, they'll put it in the same paragraph. That's the problem. They're trying to put it all as one kit and caboodle. That's the danger here, because you're right, it's not the same. And yes, we need a new black robe regiment in this country that talks about the moral, political, spiritual issues from the pulpit every single day. It's not happening here. We're in a spiritual war, as you know, Gordon. But also, let's be honest, the root of all of this is cultural Marxism. They want to, in essence, destroy Western civilization as we know it. And that is why America is such a threat. And Christianity specifically is a threat because Christianity is rooted in the truth, which is Jesus.
All right. Well, David, you got me excited.
Thanks. All right. You got me excited.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And let me just underline, when you see these news articles about Christian nationalism, please, take a giant step back. Is that propaganda? Let us all stand together against white supremacy. That's an absolute bunch of nonsense. It's eugenics. It's, you look at the history of that. It's absolutely straight out of German propaganda. No, that doesn't belong in America. We need to be one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's our dream. And that's a Christian dream. When you look to heaven and you see every nation, every tribe, every tongue coming together to worship the land, that's the dream. And that's an American